Hello and welcome to Box Office Receipts Plus. I'm your host Tyler Callahan, and for this episode, we are talking about the moves Disney recently just did. Now you might be wondering, well, why is this a Plus episode and not a regular one? Well, I felt the news here was big enough to warrant its own episode, considering this is not just release date changes. With all of the info, the breakdown will go down like this. First, I will talk about the release date changes in order, and then what it means for Disney, theaters, Hollywood as a whole, and of course we'll be talking about Premiere Access. So first up is Black Widow, which has been delayed from May 7th to July 9th. It will be released both in theaters and on Premiere Access. Cruella stays with its release date, but it will now also be available via Premiere Access on Disney+. Free Guy moves from May 21st to August 13th. Right now in theaters only, with Black Widow taking Shang-Chi's spot. That movie will now premiere on September 3rd. Right now in theaters only. Luca, the next Pixar movie, will keep its June release date. However, it will be skipping theaters entirely and premiere on Disney Plus at no extra cost. The Kingsman, which was set to finally be released in August, gets pushed to the end of the year, coming out December 22nd. It really is becoming like the New Mutants in terms of being pushed back. Deepwater gets delayed from August as well until 2022, coming out next January. Finally, Death on the Nile gets pushed out of 2021, releasing on February 11th, 2022. As an official quote on the matter, here is Kareem Daniel, chairman for Disney Media and Distribution. Quote, today's announcement reflects our focus on providing consumer choice and serving the evolving preferences of audiences. By leveraging a flexible distribution strategy in a dynamic marketplace that is beginning to recover from the global pandemic, we will continue to employ the best options to deliver the Walt Disney Company's unparalleled storytelling to fans and families around the world. End quote. As of right now, no theater company has publicly commented on these changes, though I doubt they are happy at all about this. They were all hoping for Black Widow to give them that shot in the arm to kick off summer, and now they're looking at a 2-month delay on that. So where shall we start with this? I'd say let's start with Disney. Why did they do this? I think the key reason overall is Europe. China is doing great, and America is now working on reopening and getting back to normal. But let's take Black Widow for example. Those two countries together. Black Widow could make about 400 to 500 million if it is big in China. If Disney wants it closer to 1 billion, you need Europe and even South America to be reopened in some capacity. And in case you have not looked at Europe, besides the UK, the rest of it are still in some kind of lockdown, and with the slow vaccine rollout, will not be reopening until mid-summer, maybe even late summer. But while I understand the delay, I do not like how Disney is doing Premiere Access with the 2-month delay. I think a push to late May with Premiere Access would have been okay, but a whole 2 months? They clearly want their cake and eat it too. As for the rest of Marvel, besides Shang-Chi, that being the only delay, nothing else was, so I think this should be the final set of delays for Marvel Studios, which is good. Now let's talk about Premiere Access. Looking at the latest movies to get it, only 2 did, Black Widow and Cruella. But why only them? First, I think besides the fact that they are the soonest ones to be released, I think Disney wants 2 things from this. First, they want solid data about how well Premiere Access can do. For Mulan, it was Premiere Access only domestically, right? There was no like, oh, well, how does it do as a box office compared to Disney Plus? It was Disney Plus only, and the movie sucked. They are getting some good data now with Raya because it is released in theaters and you have Premiere Access, so you're getting the comparison data, but it's a new IP. But Black Widow, that is a Marvel movie about an established character? Yeah, they would want to know how many people are willing to pay for it on Disney+. The reason for Cruella is I think they want more data on their live-action movies. Again, the situation with Mulan, it wasn't as clear, but Cruella will be in theaters Memorial Day weekend, so you have to pick Memorial Day weekend, and then Premiere Access, see what happens. It is also important to note, their next live-action movie is Jungle Cruise. That wasn't announced in these because it hasn't moved. It's still set for July 20th. And as of now, it's not set for a Premiere Access release. But don't be surprised if Cruella does really good and Black Widow does really good, that Jungle Cruise switches to that as well. The second thing I think Disney wants from this is under more normal conditions, how much would Premiere Access affect their box office numbers? Just talking about this, like, if Black Widow, says, make 650 million worldwide, and on Premiere Access another 50 million. We'll never know those numbers, but let's say 50 million. That would be very lucrative for Disney because they still get the big numbers at the box office, not huge, but still big, and then the extra 50 million, which they can keep all of it. So that would be their ideal scenario when they test this out. And before we move off Disney, there is one studio that is starting to worry me, though, and that is Pixar. With Luca going straight to Disney Plus and only being in theaters in countries where the service is not available, like Seoul, it makes me wonder, how does Disney view them now? After this, the studio has 2 movies next year, an original movie with Turning Red and a Toy Story spin-off with Buzz Lightyear. Basically, my concern here is Disney might try to push Pixar to focus more on spin-offs and sequels rather than original movies. And they could make the case, well, your streaming numbers were not that good, box office numbers are poor as well. Look, I could be overthinking it, and they're only doing this right now because Soul did amazing numbers and might even want more original movies from them. Maybe Soul did amazing. Maybe. I mean, this brings me to my main issue with Disney Plus and, other streaming services, and other analysts have the same issue, is a lack of transparency. We don't have any hard numbers about how many times people bought Raya, Mulan, how many times did they sign up, how many people signed up for Soul on Christmas Day. We don't. Only Disney knows and makes the decisions based on it. Looking at it in the big picture sense, though, this is an issue for other studios as well, like Warner Brothers and HBO Max. Again, they like the town. Wonder Woman did great for us on HBO Max. Okay, how many million watched it on Christmas Day? So it does make me a little nervous that this is the future with less and less info being released. Moving away from Disney, what does this mean for theaters, as they are the biggest group impacted by this? If we go by country or territory, the domestic theaters are the ones affected by this the most. China, for one, does not have Disney Plus, so theaters there do not have to worry about Premier Access, and they have also a mix of Chinese and Hollywood movies to watch over the next few months. For theaters in Europe, they're not even open until summer at the earliest, and again, a lot of these changes are for the fact that Europe is not reopened yet, so they don't really have to worry about that. This brings us to the domestic market, where last week, Regal started rolling out their plan to reopen in April, ahead of what was supposed to be their May release for Black Widow. Now, for theaters that have reopened, they have a quieter May than expected, which could hurt ticket sales if the movies coming out in April do not leg it out. Besides the slower recovery, there is now also the issue of who will play the movies. Just a few weeks ago, Cinemark refused to and still does not play Raya and the Last Dragon due to it being on Premier Access. AMC does so they're fine. And for Regal, we don't know yet. Disney also does not like to budge in negotiations. So are, at the very least, Cinemark gonna skip Cruella and Black Widow? Well, I'm surprised they held out on Raya. They had a chance to, as people were just coming back to theaters. But an MCU movie? Are they really gonna refuse that? Unlike Warner Brothers and Universal, who have no problem making deals, with Disney, it's their way or the highway. So, this is a game of chicken, and we will see who blinks first. Overall, what Disney has done is set the stage this summer to see how they will release movies going forward. If theaters play the movies, they get a good box office return and strong Premier Access numbers. Expect more movies in the future, like Shang-Chi, to also have a Premier Access launch. They'll have that dual release. If it fails, then they will just go back to a straight theatrical release. They really want a clear test of this. Another thing I will mention is that for the past year, after seeing all the studio plans to release movies during the pandemic and now after, Disney is the one I think that has actually hurt theaters the most. At first it was Universal, when the whole Trolls, PVOD, and all that uproar, but they were willing to make deals and release the occasional movie. They were the ones to be like, all right, you guys are upset. Make the deal with us, shorter window, but the movies will have an exclusive window, just shorter, and you get a small slice of the PVOD cash for the movies. And then, who was it next? It was Warner Brothers and HBO Max. There was an uproar, and I think rightfully so. But, again, they've been making deals. So like, hey, you want more of a share of a ticket, right? So if people actually do go to theaters to watch our movies, you get a little more to ticket money. It's fine, all right? Let's work it out. And because of that deal making, the theaters have shown all the Warner Brother movies, and theaters have had a consistent schedule of movies. Since Wonder Woman, they haven't delayed a movie. But for Disney, it's nah. The few movies that we want to go to Disney Plus, we'll go to Disney Plus, and Premier Access. You don't get a cut of Premier Access, and we're going to keep the same ticket price percentage cut as before. So yeah, but here's the thing, they have so many popular and big IP. No theater can openly complain, like AMC did with Universal last year. They can only talk to them privately, try and negotiate, hope for the best. Well, I think that about covers it for the news and potential fallout from what Disney have done. All we can do now is just wait and see what happens. What do you think about the changes? If given the option of watching in theaters safely or watching on Premier Access, which one would you prefer? Let me know on Facebook. Link to the pages in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.